My name is Aremeyaw Anas. Anonymity has always been my secret weapon. Well, first of all, I think that just like other professions, there is an inherent danger in every profession that one undertakes. And hazards are normal because even if you were walking on the street and you're a pedestrian, you could get knocked by a vehicle. It can happen. So we are not in control of some issues. The most important thing is when these dangers come, what do you put in place to mitigate the issues that come up regarding danger? I think that's very, very important. So how do I get driven? See, I've always said that my journalism is driven by the people. It's people driven. It's people centered. And so I am motivated when my piece of work has impacted on a life, on a limb, when the many children that have come out of bondage as a result of my work, when I see that smile on their faces, when I go back to the village and see my grandma, and my grandma is able to recall that, yeah, I heard that story last week, and I heard that so and so number of pregnant women, so and so number of children have been rescued as a result of your work. That's what gives me that passion. That's what gives me that drive to be able to move on and to persevere. My ultimate pursuit is that as Africans, we ought to be realistic. And we don't have to go by the books that have been defined by people. We have to define the books according to our way of lives and according to our culture and according to the inherent needs of our people. So I don't say that because Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, NYU has defined journalism in a certain way, we have to do it that way. I think that the journalism has to ultimately be defined by the people. And so what works is what works. So what you call journalism in America might have differences in Africa. So I'm saying that if we learn to be realistic and to confront the issues we have wholeheartedly and through direct and frontal attack, we will realize that that paradigm of just naming and shaming does not work. You see, there's no point in doing that excellent piece of journalism for people to read it and cross their legs in their bedrooms. The point of doing journalism is to ensure that there is development. That is the essence of life. And so, I have taken that extra mile that I will name and shame, yes, but then I'll go that extra mile to jail. And I'm saying this looking at 10, 20, 30 years coming. If society begins to change, let us define our journalism by those changes. So that if in the next 20 years, jailing is not necessary in Africa, and that there is no point in any journalist stretching to put that jailing bit to the naming and shaming, so be it. But whatever should be that new trend, we should get into it. We should not be afraid to take those risks and to try to change the status quo. That's the only way we can make a meaningful impact on the continent as well as its beautiful people. Well, I have seen it all. I've been called all sorts of names. Atlantic Magazine describes me as a spy, forger. Um, some say FBI agent, others say CIA, and all that. Yes, arts, yes. And it is building a bridge between me and the art industry. That's fantastic. But hey, I don't really mind what anybody thinks of it. Art is a very beautiful thing. And what I care about is what works. What is realistic? So, if at the end of the day, I will have to get into a character that makes me a reggae musician, so be it, lovely. If I take a role that makes me and defines me in the art, beautiful. For me, the most important thing is not the how, but the impact that it leaves on human lives. But then again, I think that the art is a very important area. in the general, when you look at Africans and our culture, the role that arts plays. So perhaps this is an attempt to let people see that art plays a very important role in shaping the thinking of our people in Africa. I am doing it because that's the most realistic way of telling our stories. And like I said, if in the next 20 years it is not art and it is mining that is going to tell the story, I don't care. I am telling the stories and I'm driving it hard and I'm impacting on lives. That is the most important. I think that up-and-coming journalists ought to be realistic with issues and that we have to think of impacts. And so in thinking of impact, it doesn't matter. You see, journalism cannot walk alone in today's century. Journalism ought to be opened to other disciplines. So if it is music, you ought to be open to it. If your people eat and drink music, you have to make sure that you embed that piece of that music into your work to make sure that that work becomes acceptable by your people. We should be able to define the needs of our people and tailor our journalism to suit those needs without necessarily twisting the facts and the truths in the story. For me, these are essential. We should be daring. But at any time that we decide to take those risks, we should be sure that we have the necessary backups that will ensure that we live to be able to tell the next story tomorrow. No story is worth human lives. It will come at a great pain and at a great risk. But at the end of the day, there must be indelible marks, both on our heads and on our skin, to show the sacrifices that we have made. And at the end of the day, there must be smiles on the faces of those we have saved. I'm very much encouraged by the enthusiasm I've seen across the African continent of people. And yesterday I was speaking and I mentioned Nigeria. And I said that I had collaborated with the Nigerian police. This was not possible some years back. But today, people are beginning to see that if Africa must change, it must take our own people to bring that change. And that is heartwarming. I've worked in Tanzania. I've worked in many other Africa, Kenya, and many other people, and I've had the opportunity to dialogue with my colleagues and to dialogue with civil society and security agencies. And I think that together, we would, if we decide to bring our various strengths together, we are going to make that impact. Look, there is a thinking that people think journalism is journalism, and so if I have my facts, I have to keep it to my chest because it's a scoop. Yes, in as much as scoops are important in journalism, we should also realize that sometimes some of the scoops we deal with borders on human lives. So if you have that story that is showing that kids are dying in a particular mining town, and you have decided that in the name of scoop, you are going to keep it as an exclusive and release it at the time you want, what you have to bear in mind is that as you keep that piece of work to yourself, many people are dying. So at the end of the day, I see nothing wrong with us putting our strengths together and ensuring that, when I say putting our strength together, I mean that journalist and that law enforcement agency worker, that policeman. Because you see, as journalists, we do not possess powers of arrest. We can only count on the police and count on our judiciary and push them to do what they have to do. So, if we decide not to collaborate with these agencies and we think we have scoops, at the end of the day, that scoop will not benefit society. So definitely there are positives. Now, the negatives is how to penetrate through the system and to ensure that we are able to have effective collaboration with these agencies to stamp out the bad guys from society. Of course, there will be pockets of resistance. Just because of the fact that some of these bad guys pay some of our people. And these are normal hurdles. Let not any African journalist or any African activist think that it's a tea party. It can never be a tea party. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to come with pain. Some of us will have to pay with our lives. Some of us will have to lose all the trappings of a good life and good social life and all that to achieve this. But at the end of the day, there will be light at the end of the tunnel. It is not always dark. Sometimes there are smiles. You know, when I set out there, and at the end of the day, you are able to crack the story in its finest time. You realize that it brings a lot of smile, not only to your face, but to others. But that reminds me of once when I headed out to do a story in a secondary school. It's called Nkrofo Agricultural Secondary School in Ghana. And then I went in there as a student. I had my prospectus and all that. I took my trunk and we went to school. I was in the boarding house. And the aim of the story was to expose the corrupt activities, the indiscipline in school. So definitely coming undercover and with my hidden cameras, I needed to film this. And so as part of it, I needed to have a girlfriend. And so I was there with the girlfriend. We started going out and all that. About a month or 2-3 weeks, then I got a call from my boss that, look, you have to round up the story and bring it back home. And this was times that, things caught on well. We were going out in the evenings, and that's that nostalgic feeling of the fact that I was then in the university and still I had come that level, and the feeling of being in that age, because love for my girlfriend was just a bar of chocolate. Just give her a bar of chocolate and it's all done. And you are in the university and you want to compare what it takes to date a girl in the university. You need your pizza, you need your ice creams, and then down there. So those moments when you begin to really look at life, it can get a little bit exciting. But when you get that call from your editor that, look, round up and come back home, it can feel funny. And so I would give an excuse to my boss. Yeah, boss, but the story is not yet on. I need more time. So yes, it's not all that gloomy. Sometimes it comes with a little bit of, you have to find that excitement in your job. And I'm very passionate about what I do. So I try to look around the four walls and to find what makes me happy. Look, I'm sure that my colleagues will be laughing here. And I have favorite musicians. I talk of reggae is my thing, and everybody knows. Talk of Black Prophet, talk of Dwayne Stevenson. You can talk of Grams Morgan, Bob Marley, Lucky Dubé. Reggae is me. I'm always driven by reggae, and I'd listen to it any day. And talk of local music in Ghana, you find me doing a Kojo Entry, you find me doing 924. Maria Makiba, you can talk of Hugh Masakela. These are great people who only don't just do music for doing sake, but by the time you would have finished listening to any of those pieces, if you listen to Just I Wash Away Our Tears by Grams Morgan, by the time you are done, you realize that the didactic message is very clear and it inspires me. So I have done, I read very widely, and talk of Nigeria's Isidori Opehu, The Last Duty, and talk of Amata Edu, talk of many African writers. The African writers series is quite my bet. I would do Amujoloto, I would do those great guys, and the great books they've written over the years. So I'm that African to look for that African. Also broad-minded. If there's anything I have to read out there to understand how things happen, I will do it. Well, I think that already a lot is being done. Today, you need to just go into any institution and then just mention Anas in Ghana and some other African countries, and already there is a lot of panic, and you see a lot of cars that has stickers that says Anas is watching, and you see a lot of adverts that have been built that Anas will get you, and so the impact is gradually being felt. And fortunately, I know that it's not going to be an easy struggle. Don't forget, we started from zero, and over the years, we have moved on. We've had a couple of trainings in Ghana of African journalists who are also very passionate and are also lighting up such candles in their countries. And I have also been very well prepared as a person to help my colleagues anytime they've called me. If you've seen some of my stories, I hold the hands of colleagues in their various countries. We do the investigations together, and it is aired. So these are ways of empowering people. The Anas phenomenon is not about a personality. It's not about me. It's about the people and their aspirations and how we want to get rid of bad guys from our society. I think it's a genuine desire by many people. My film Chameleon got premiered in Mexico, and it received a lot of patronage. Not because of any magic, but because of the fact that the issues resonated with the people. So I see my piece of work more as a third world issue, and that is a necessity in our society. And if there's always a necessity, we would always get people who will be willing to take those sacrifices, especially as we push the frontiers of our democracy. So I believe it's not my job alone. The Anas is not me. It's everybody. You are the Anas in your community. If you see that wrong, pick up that camera, film that, and expose it. Today, fortunately, we are governed by social media. And already lots of people are doing their Anas work. Lots of people. I walk around towns and I see people wearing t-shirt that says, I am Anas. I have gone as far as even some francophone countries where I've seen Je suis Anas. And I think all this is welcoming. As we keep pushing the frontiers, we will be able to achieve it. Also, this work is not done in the vacuum. If we get those businessmen who have the capacity to push the Anases in their community to work, it's not about me, but it's about any good person who is trying to do good in society. If they can help, they should stand up. When society bends, it doesn't bend us alone. It bends perhaps the businessmen more than us. So let us all put our hands on them and push the frontiers of our democracy. I think that in the monarchical form that you find our African systems, because we are predominantly a monarchical society, but inherent in the monarchical system is some level of democracy. Call it what you want. The chief in our various African countries do not take decisions on their own. There is the Council of Elders. There is the Queen Mother who installs the chief. There is the fetish priest who plays his role. So in as much as I think that democracy is a concept, the concept is about all-inclusiveness. So that if you have a chief in an African setting who does not listen to the elders, he becomes a dictator. Same way, if you have a president who doesn't listen to the arms of government and who doesn't listen to the Council of State, it is very possible that that chief will become a dictator. So, for me, there are parallel lines. As a people, we have to identify what we have and see what we can bring on board to enhance what we have. Let's take away all the dictatorial tendencies. It doesn't matter what kind of government system it is. For me, every system must have its all-inclusive patterns. And it is only when we have the voices of the people being heard, whether monarchical, whether democracy, or any kind of government, then we have a better society. Look, I think there's a lot of hope for our continent. But that hope can only be turned into a pulsating reality if the people on the continent help push the frontiers. It is not going to be done by Westerners. It can only be done by us, the Africans. And at the end of the day, when we are able to do it, we'll be able to lift this continent. And I have no doubt at all that this continent is a sleeping giant. One day, we're going to wake up to the realization that the African continent is a superpower. And the earlier its people keep pushing through to make sure this happens, the better.